She has opened the eyes of young women of color who now see running for statewide office as possible and winning is inevitable. Now, y'all know I never called 45 my president, right? Well, I will always claim Stacey Abrams as my governor of Georgia. So please give it up for Stacey Abrams, the people's governor. CBTU loves you, Stacey, and we will always have your back. Give her a hand. Lift her up. Lift her up. Lift her up. Sisters and brothers, in many places, massive voter suppression, the culprit that costed Stacey Abrams her place in history, is on the move. The same white rage that burst to the surface after Obama's election has unleashed a furious campaign to suffocate our voting rights after we rocked the box in 2018. In Texas, now Claude worked his off. I promised I wasn't going. Claude Cummings and team in Texas worked their off. And after Democrats picked up a dozen seats in the state legislatures, the Republican majority tried to rush through a bill that would make just voting in the wrong precinct a criminal act. But they failed for now. Their battle ain't over. Last month in Tennessee, the Republican governor signed a sinister bill designed to enfranchise black voters and punish groups that submit incomplete voter registration forms for which they could be fined $10,000. There's no mystery about what triggered the new law. The Tennessee Black Voter Project alone registered 90,000 black folks ahead of last year's election. We are their target. And then there's Florida. You know, there's got to be some drama going on in Florida. Well, try this. The Republican governor and legislator got together and overturned the will of Florida voters who overwhelmingly approved Amendment 4 on the ballot, a ballot initiative that restored, and we talked about that, the voting rights of 1.4 million citizens who had served their sentence for committing a felony. It would have been a huge boost to black voting power in a critical battleground state. Instead, the Republican governor and his posse of lawmakers passed a sweeping restitution law that amounts to a modern-day poll tax. People with felony convictions would have to pay all fines and court charges before they could regain their right to vote as free citizens. Did I hear someone say Jim Crow? Take the situation of Karen Lake, a paralegal in Miami with a past felony on her record. She would have to pay, get this, $59 million. $59 million in restitution to ever vote again. And by the way, Karen is a 61-year-old Republican. They getting caught up in it too. You see, voter suppression is really an American problem. It's not just a black problem. Truth is, sisters and brothers, the American democracy is being tested. It is being undermined from within. Wherever white rage tries to restrict black voting access or lights a match to black churches, Jewish synagogues, or Muslims' mosques, massive voter suppression has put the fight for free and fair elections at the very center of America's political conversation. And while we may be on familiar ground when we battle our domestic adversaries, black Americans now face a poisonous foreign enemy, an enemy nearly 6,000 miles away from where we gather this morning, an enemy that is an ally of the American president, No, I said the American president, not my president. I'm talking about the Russian Federation. Now, stay with me. Hold up. Wait a minute. I know y'all tired of hearing about Russia. But stay with me on this. Putin and his boys deserve your attention for the next few minutes. I'm not going to talk long, but not about him anyway. Now we know the Russian regime meddled in the 2016 election. The Mueller report. Now, anybody read the report? 1, 2, 3. 3 of us read the report. The rest of us just going by what other people told us. I want to tell you to download it, take it in the bathroom, set it down. Every time you go in, don't take the newspaper, just take the report. After a few weeks, I promise you'll get through it. But I say this because it's important that we don't take what somebody else is telling us as truth. It's like when I'm in church and preaching. I said, don't listen to what I'm telling you. Go back and read it for yourself in the Bible. Don't listen to what I'm telling you about the Mueller report. Go back and read it for yourself. You will find that collusion is all in the report. All right, I'm gonna behave. Not. The Mueller report confirmed the breadth and scope of the Russian effort to tilt the outcome in 45's favor. They reached 126 million Facebook users, at least 20 million users on Instagram, 1.4 million users on Twitter, and uploaded over 1,000 videos on YouTube. But the National Urban League's new State of Black America report paints a more detailed and disturbing picture of Russia's cyber attack on American democracy. It reveals a blatant voter suppression campaign targeted at black folks at the directions of the Russian government. Dozens of Facebook or Instagram accounts were created with messaging specifically directed at black folks to suppress our turnout on election day. Tweets crafted to create confusion about voting rules, messages to redirect support for a particular candidate, such as vote for a third-party candidate. Turnout messages to suppress the vote, such as stay home on election day or your vote don't matter anyway. The Russians will co-opt the names of real groups with good reputations in the black community. For example, Black Lives Matter. The most targeted audience of Russians' YouTube channels was African American community. Us. More than 1,000 of the 1,100 videos uploaded on Russian-controlled channels were focused on Black Lives Matter and police brutality. The cozy alignment of Russian interests with Republican election tampering really boils down to a common goal: disrupt and keep black voter turnout as low as possible at all costs. And let me be very, very clear about what I mean, all costs. As recently as last year, Russians connected to Putin hatched a potentially deadly scheme to trigger an armed rebellion of black folks in America. You ain't heard about that nowhere else but CBTU. The plan called for the development strategy of a Pan-African state on U.S. territory. It called for recruiting poor, formerly incarcerated African Americans who, the Russians said, have experience in organized crime groups, as well as members of radical black movements. These folks would be sent to camps in Africa for combat prep training and training to sabotage. Sounds something like somebody else was doing. On return to the United States, these armed Russian-trained black SWAT team would be sent to create a Pan-Africa state in the South, particularly South Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, and Louisiana. I don't have to tell you what would happen to a group of armed black folks who started shooting at white people in the South and tried to take their land and establish a state-controlled by African Americans. I don't have to tell you what will happen. But the idea that Russia would use violence and racism and our bloodshed to manipulate the 2020 elections is despicable and a threat to the national security of all Americans. It also sends the message that racism makes America vulnerable to foreign cyber attacks. It is a message that we cannot ignore. So what lessons can we draw about this new voter suppression tag team in Moscow and the Republican Party? Well, for the first time, a foreign government has emerged as a major adversary of African American community, not just the American government. Second, Russia is absolutely clear about who are the staunchest protectors of American values, and that's black folks. Third, Russia will try again in 2020 to manipulate, divide, and dilute the black vote with the blessing of Putin's puppet in the White House. And finally, the resounding silence from Republicans about Russia's attack on our flawed election system exposes how American democracy is even more rigged than we already knew. How anybody in any party at any time, when you got proof laid in front of you saying that somebody else is trying to control your election and has controlled and manipulated your election, will just stand back and say it's okay, is blowing my mind. In a country that's supposed to stand for freedom and justice for all, it is blowing my mind. When the Republicans just stand there and put blocks up to getting information, it is blowing my mind. And I used to stand before you and say, I'm going to support them that support me. I don't care if they had a D or R behind the name. But right now, to hell with the R's. If you're going to stand with a fool that's standing up against the rights of all of our citizens in this country, if you're going to stand and support somebody that's clearly a bigot and a misogynist and not look out for all the people, you take your ass and go home. I tried, Bill. I tried. We don't want to bow down before Trump's boss in the Kremlin, and we refuse to be distracted from the urgent business at hand. And that business is to put a 40-ounce can of, as the president of AFG, he would say, a 40-ounce can of whoop ass on condom in 2020, and a junior-sized can on Don Jr. We gonna come out and do some stuff we ain't did before. We gonna show them some stuff they ain't seen before. Folks gonna come out to vote they didn't even know existed in this country before. Black folks gonna come out like they never came out before. And how do I know they coming out? Because y'all gonna find them. I don't care where they at. I don't care if they're in the bar. I don't care if they're in a beauty shop. I don't care if they laid out somewhere. I don't care if they're in the ditch. You gonna get them up. You gonna dress them up. You gonna register them. And you gonna get their ass to the polls. It's a new day. It's a new day. We ain't standing for this stuff no more. Serious notes. We're up against a grifter who tells lies like an ATM machine spits out cash. A con man who has broken free of his Republican straitjacket and is beating his re-election and on appealing to white nationalism. A bigot who could see no difference between white supremacists carrying a torch through Charlottesville and peaceful protests carrying signs. There's some good people on both sides, like hell there is. I'm sorry, ain't nobody good when they trying to beat me for no reason. Ain't nobody good when they trying to knock me out for no reason. Ain't nobody good when they gonna run over an innocent person and kill him for no reason. Hell no, you're not good. We can't sugarcoat this. Trumpism has spawned an unprecedented rise in hate crimes. In 2017, more than 7,000 hate crimes were reported, and nearly 60% of them were motivated by race or ethnicity. The number of white nationalist groups has increased by 50%. They're holding more rallies and spreading more racist, anti-Semitic, anti-Muslim material over the internet. They've infiltrated police departments, the courts, and even the highest office in the land, the White House. Now, some folks gonna go out and tell somebody I said that, and I really don't give a damn. All I want you to do is when you report it to your friends, because we all got somebody, there's always somebody in the convention. Everybody look like us ain't for us. There is a reporter for the right that's in here. And I want you to know, when you go back and report it, I want you to get it right. It's Reverend T-E-R-R-E-N-C-E. Lee, L-E-E. Melvin, M-E-L-V-I-N. I live in Hamburg, New York, 14075. Don't mess up and go after somebody else. Come on, bring it on. I'm ready for your ass. In spite of the mounting deadly attacks of white domestic terrorism, and we got to call it out what it is, homegrown white terrorism. In spite of this daily threat to American citizens, Trump has signaled whose side he's on. His administration has actually gutted the federal budget for fighting domestic terrorism, making it harder to identify and stop white extremists from committing more horrific crimes. The message is unmistakable. Lawless racists know they have an ally in a lawless, racist, misogynist, bigoted president. Now, 45 and his disciples and his administration in Congress have taken a block everything approach to all efforts aimed at holding him accountable to the law, which is kind of what the Constitution says the Congress is supposed to do. If you bother to read the Constitution, which, by the way, he hasn't. After 2.5 years, there are more than 20 investigations going on that directly connected to 45, his family, or the White House. Mind you, that's 20 more than President Obama had in his 8 years in the White House. I mean, he got 20, Obama had none. 20 for 45, 0 for Obama. Whose side are you on? He's clearly trying to run the clock out and box Democrats into a corner on the impeachment and the 2020 elections. Let me be clear. I want to be clear with everybody in here, and don't get it twisted. I don't want that fool impeached. I don't want it. I want y'all to be clear. Don't think I'm crazy. Don't think I lost my mind. Long as I got Nancy in place holding his ass off, leave him right where he at, and let's clean his clock in the 2020 elections. And let's not just take him out, but let's take all his cronies out with him. Let's wipe their asses out. From the rooter to the tutor, let's wipe them out. We gotta have a long-term strategy and not be short-sighted. Impeachment is short-sighted. You got to have the long-term strategy. You got to be ready to do more than the White House. See, that's the problem we had. We got the White House when we had Barack, but we let everything else go. We got to go for the whole ball game. The White House, the Senate, the Congress, the State House, the City House, the County House. We got to take them all. Many people have wondered if those of us who still carry a union card are up to the challenge of evicting a criminal president and turning back vicious attacks on our voting rights. Many wondered if the Supreme Court Janus decision last year drove a stake through labor's battered but beating heart. The decision that was supposed to bankrupt unions like AFSCME, AFT, NEA, CWA, and SEIU and sap our political power. Yes, they were reading our eulogy with joy. And I think even some of us was a little skeptical about what was going to happen. Well, I want to happily report that something happened on the way to the graveyards. See, you never know when a mighty chariot just might swing low and become your bridge over troubled water. So we rose up and we fought back. We accepted the challenge of converting fee payers into full members. We start talking to our members again like we used to years ago. We start letting them know that it wasn't the boss that gave you the 40-hour work week. It wasn't the boss that gave you that health insurance plan. It wasn't the boss that gave you that vacation time. It wasn't the boss that gave you that paycheck you got. It wasn't the boss that gave you them raises. It was the union. And because of that, instead of a knockout blow, Janus became the labor's movement long overdue wake-up call. Even the Wall Street Journal, the daily Bible of the business community, reported 2018 was the biggest year for collective action in 3 decades. Watch this. I saw teachers standing up. Now, don't get me wrong, teachers. Before their union could get there, before their leadership could get there, they demanded that their rights be heard, and we caught up with them and stood with them. See, that happened in one place, but it started popping all over the country. Folks start saying, I'm sticking with my union because my union is sticking with me. We still have a long way to go to bring unions in step with the diverse workforce that needs our leadership. And CBTU will be right there, pushing open doors of opportunity for women, people of color, trans, gay, and immigrants to shape the mission of the labor movement that will emerge from this generation. And let me repeat, the labor movement that will emerge from this generation. CBTU can only be born once, but it is reborn with each generation that identifies its mission and pursues greatness. Can I just pause for a moment and ask all the 40 and under folks to please stand for me? All the 40 and under folks, please stand for me. All the 40 and under folks, Steve, please stand for me. The rest of us that's sitting down, I want you to look around. And let me tell you something, this ain't our future, this is our today. This is our today. We need to grab each and every one of them, grab them by their bootstraps, give them what they need to succeed in this movement. Because if we don't do it, it is our fault when the movement don't look like us in 12 100 years, it is our fault if we don't do our part. It's not just about coming to a convention. Your work really starts, seniors, mentors, when we leave here. You got somebody in your union that's of an age that you can start mentoring. You've got somebody in your union that's at an age that you can start bringing in. And I'm not saying give them a mop and tell them to clean the floor. I'm saying take them to the board meeting with you. I'm telling put them on the finance committee. Put them on the planning committee. Let them be a part of what is going on in your union, just like they ought to be a part of what's going on every day in the coalition of black trade unionists. Folks, something is happening across America. Unions are popular again. So popular that we elected more than 960 union members to office last year. But I bet you didn't hear that on CNN or MSNBC. You didn't see it, you definitely didn't see it on Fox News. But we're coming back. We're coming back. Right here, right about here, I want to say a few words about 2020. Now, you should have received, and Cleola went through this earlier, the ballot with the first CBTU presidential straw poll. You know, when Dwight came to me with this, it was an intriguing proposition. We have over 1,000 black folks coming together to get their marching orders. We got all kind of folks all over the country telling us who we want and what we want. What a novel damn idea for us to tell them who we want and what we want. So those of you who are unsure that you want to participate or not, you have a choice. Because guess what? It's not about what Terry Melvin wants you to do. If you don't fill it out, your conscience gonna whoop you when you get out of here. Because this is your opportunity to set the tone of what black labor is looking for in the 2020 election. You must fill this out. You must turn this in, and not just who you're leaning toward, but what are the issues that mean the most to you and your household and your members. We need to know. And we're going to put this together, and we're going to shove it down every candidate's throat that if they don't live up to what we want, guess what? We ain't supporting their ass. I'll go blank before I support somebody that ain't going to support my people. If anybody asks you whether we cleared this with the Democratic Party or the candidates, I want you to tell them very slowly. CBTU has never and will never ask any outside force what we need to do with, about, and within our organization. So the answer to them, you can say very calmly, when they ask you, did we check with the Democratic Party? The answer is, hell no. When they ask you, did we check with any of the candidates? I want you to say very calmly, hell no. That's all you got to say. You can tell them that, Bill Lucy, we didn't ask permission when CBTU endorsed Progressive Democrat Jordan McGovern for president in 1972. As a matter of fact, Bill told them all go to hell. I wasn't there back then, but I done heard so many folks that was there tell me the story. The story how they called together black labor to come together, and the story how so many of their presidents told them they dared not show up. And the story of how over 1,800 of them coming out their own pocket. Ain't no union send them nowhere. As a matter of fact, they told them they better not come. They showed up because they knew what was going on was wrong for our people. They showed up to take a stand. And I'm asking you to be the 2019 version of 1972. It's time to stand up and take a stand and be ready to kick some real ass. So this year, we have rolled out our own poll to find out who in this huge, diverse, evolving field of candidates, I think it's up to 24, 25 this morning, is clicking with you and who's not. I know how passionate some of you are about certain candidates. Now, what I don't need you to do is be looking over nobody's shoulder. No, I'm serious, because I want a true poll. I really want to know what you individually are thinking. But at the end of the day, the only name that really matters is the name of the candidate who is declared the winner on election night. The candidate who sends Trump home or on his way to jail. I don't care which one. I would prefer he spend some time in a jumpsuit, but I'm not sure if that's gonna happen. I just say, just dump Trump. 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 If there's a monkey on the ballot, just dump Trump. If there's a chimpanzee on the ballot, just dump Trump. If there's a donkey on the ballot, just dump Trump. I say we can work with all them better than we can work with this. I need to share something with you. I get a little annoyed when I watch or read stories about white working class communities feeling forgotten or left behind. And we are assured winning them back, convincing them to put aside that whiteness is the best path to beat Trump. But to many, it looks like black workers have been whitewashed out of mainstream conversations about working class voters. These narratives devalue our concerns. It hurts and sets back experience, the setbacks, the experience by black workers and other ethnic groups. Coping with aggressive policing every day is real. Coping with being passed over for a promotion due to white privilege is real. Coping with raising a grandchild or on retirement income is real. Coping with gentrification is real. Rationalized narratives also lead to a losing political calculation. The candidates don't need to take black working class voters as seriously as they do their white counterparts. But I would strongly advise candidates to avoid that miscalculation. We deserve more than drive-bys and photo ops. We deserve to be taken seriously as working class voters. Without our voices and our stories, the 2020 conversation is one-sided and rigged. I mean, let me just pause for a moment here and ask anybody in the house, do you know what group was the group that made all those successes that the Democrats had in the 2018 election possible? Black folks. See, and you know in particular which black folks? Y'all can do better than that. If you in that group, you ought to stand up right now. If you in that group that made a change in the 2018 election, you ought to stand up right now. You ought to stand up right now. Brothers, you ought to be bending over and giving homage to these sisters because they're the ones that carried us through. And we ought not forget the plight of the black woman and what she has been through all these centuries in this country. We've got to lift you up. Glory, hallelujah. So cast your ballots. Use the poll results to keep the conversation going when it's released. As I contemplate the hard work ahead, my spirit is lifted by the wave of local activism rippling across the country. From the climate warriors still fighting for clean water in Flint we still don't have it. To advocates for justice demanding fair sentences and fair treatment of immigrant families at our borders. Citizens are becoming more engaged in civic actions in their community. Last year, I asked all of our chapters to develop their own civic engagement programs because we cannot wait to be invited into local campaigns or resistance movements. We can't be on the sidelines, nor can our tax dollars going to be used to build parks for pets instead of buying school supplies to help our children and teachers. Over the past year, CBTU chapters have answered the call to engage. For example, and I'm not going to list them all, but our St. Louis chapter was front and center in a massive grassroots campaign that delivered a resounding defeat to right-to-work law in Missouri. Stand up, St. Louis chapter. Stand up, St. Louis chapter. Y'all kicked ass. I don't care what nobody say. I know that the other folks didn't come in till y'all was winning the fight, and then they came and tried to steal the glory, but we know who did it. CBTU chapters in Ohio played an important role in a coalition of civic and labor groups that claimed a milestone victory earlier this month. Federal judges in Ohio tossed out the Republican map for partisan gerrymandering. Ohio, stand up! Ohio, stand up! Where P.D. Charlie? Where P.D. Charlie? P.D. On May 5th, CBTU members in Broward County, Florida, joined hundreds of angry citizens who marched and protested yet another incident of brutal policing in the black community. They stood with grassroots leaders in demanding justice for DeLuca LaRoe. Hey, could we see Florida stand up? Florida, stand up. Broward County, stand up. Mike Payne, stand up. Ron Neely, stand up. Take your accolades. These and many other civic engagement success stories show that we are building trust, earning respect, and having an impact. Now, when the political calendar rolls around to 2020, we will be working with more community and labor partners to rock the box. Keep reaching out, keep listening, keep sharing, and keep showing respect for grassroots leaders. Let's grow our network and civic allies. We cannot do this alone. Let's get prepared to remove the hands of the devil from our voting rights. Finally, my sisters and brothers, as we gather today in this ballroom, in this southern city, we should take a few minutes to acknowledge a milestone that touches every person within the sound of my voice. 400 years ago, the first enslaved Americans arrived on the muddy shores of Jamestown, Virginia. Ever since the arrival of that first slave ship, black labor has been the unbreakable thread in the contradictory life of American democracy. The denial of freedom made freedom possible. And ever since the first shackled African American sang or moaned the first blues song about the injustice depth in the soul of this new democracy, we have found ways to hold on to our humanity and pursue the full citizenship that our blood and toil has paid for. It ain't been easy these last 400 years. Slavery stole our wealth. Jim Crow denied us equal accommodations. Lynch mobs killed us for entertainment. Plessy versus Ferguson set us back 50 years. The Great Migration carried us away from the KKK into the airtight cage of northern racism without a hood. But through it all, to paraphrase Sister Maya Angelou, and still we rise. Standing up for affordable health care and strong public schools, still we rise. Standing up for incarcerated sisters and brothers, still we rise. Standing up for women's rights to control her own body, still we rise. Standing in solidarity with freedom fighters in Palestine and Sudan, union activists in Zimbabwe and Brazil, and teachers everywhere, still we rise. Sisters and brothers, we have arrived at a crossroads. The questions I have for you as I begin to take my seat: are you ready to engage and agitate? If you are, stand to your feet. Are you ready to hold candidates accountable? Are you ready to pack up a lying president? Are you ready to fight for a fair and accurate census count? Are you willing to march as long as it takes to make our community safe from gun violence? Do you have the heart, the passion, and the determination to honor our ancestors who came to these shores 400 years ago in chains but have never surrendered their dignity to their oppressors? Are you ready to stand with me? Stand up and we will take America where it so desperately needs to go, from the roots of equality and security to the mountaintop of freedom and justice. We are CBTU, and we will never, ever leave the battlefield. Weeping may endure for a night, but joy cometh in the morning. It's morning time, CBTU. It's morning time. It's morning time.